Home Studio Start podcast.
Have you ever spent hours, maybe even days, getting a track just right, pouring everything into it?
Oh, yeah. Meticulously tweaking every little sound.
Exactly. And then you play it back on your studio monitors and it just sounds wrong, like completely different.
Totally. The bass is suddenly way too loud, or maybe the highs are just harsh.
It's like all that magic just evaporates, right? And it often comes down to your gear not giving you the honest truth.
Especially when you're working in a small space.
Yeah.
Like a bedroom studio or something.
Yeah, those compact environments, every single detail of how you hear things really, really counts.
It's a super common frustration. And it highlights something critical. In a small room where, space is tight, getting the right gear isn't just about making it fit.
Right.
It's about precision. It's about making sure what you hear is actually what your listeners will hear. You don't want the room lying to you.
Exactly. And that is precisely why today, on the deep dive part of the Home Studio Start podcast, we are tackling a huge piece of that home studio puzzle, finding the best studio monitors specifically for small spaces.
Crucial stuff.
Totally. And our guide for this deep dive is this really comprehensive article from Rodrigo Marquez over at Home Studio Start.
Okay.
It's called Top Studio Monitors for Small Spaces, Sound Quality Unleashed. And their slogan, home recording made easy, feels spot on here.
Nice. So Rodrigo's got the insights. What's our mission then?
Our mission today is basically to cut through all the confusion, give you the info you actually need to turn that, cozy little nook into a sonic sanctuary you can actually trust. We're going to highlight key features, share some real-life tips, practical stuff straight from Rodrigo's article.
Okay, so helping you make a good choice.
Yeah.
Elevate that production game.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut to finding the right speakers for your space.
All right, let's do it. Where do we start? Acoustics.
Yeah, okay, let's unpack this. When you're setting up, especially in like a bedroom or a small room, the very first thing Rodrigo stresses isn't even the monitors.
Right, it's the room itself.
Exactly. He says understanding acoustics is just crucial because the right environment, it makes your monitors perform so much better. I mean, I've heard people say a bad room makes good speakers sound bad. Is that really true?
Oh, it's absolutely true. And it's something people often skip over. What's fascinating and often surprises people is how much the room's dimensions, its shape, affect the sound.
How so?
Well, rectangular rooms, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of notorious for creating these things called standing waves.
Standing waves, okay.
Yeah, imagine sound bouncing back and forth between parallel walls. It reinforces itself in some spots, cancels out in others. It just muddies up the audio, makes your mix sound off.
So you can't trust what you're hearing.
Exactly. Ironically, a room that's more square-ish or even kind of irregularly shaped can sometimes be better.
Really? Why?
Because those uneven surfaces naturally help to scatter or diffuse the sound waves.
Reduces those problem spots.
Okay, so most of us probably don't have a perfectly designed room. Rodrigo must have some tips for, normal rooms, right? Cost-effective ways to fix things. Definitely. And you don't need to break the bank. I remember my first attempt was hanging a thick blanket. Probably didn't do much.
Huh. Mine was a duvet behind the desk. What does Rodrigo suggest that's maybe a bit more pro?
Slight chuckle. Yeah, a little. He suggests practical things like heavy curtains or proper acoustic panels.
Okay.
Those are great for absorbing sound, cutting down those reflections that make a small room sound echoey, almost like a bathroom.
Right. Get rid of that boxiness.
And here's a clever one he mentions. Bookshelves filled with books.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Or even just placing furniture strategically. It helps break up the sound waves. It's all about creating varied surfaces to scatter the sound. Kind of turns your regular room into a subtle diffuser.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, you've done what you can with the room treatment. What's next? Speaker placement.
Yes. Rodrigo calls this the core of the matter in small spaces, getting the placement right.
So what's the ideal setup then for someone in a tight spot?
Right. The goal is to get your monitors to form an equilateral triangle with your listening position.
Equilateral. So a perfect triangle.
Yep. Your head is the third point, equal distance from each speaker, and the speakers are that same distance apart from each other.
Okay.
And here's a really critical tip. Keep the monitors away from walls, especially the wall behind them. At least a few feet if you can manage it.
A few feet? That can be tough in a small room.
I know, but it's key for minimizing those reflections that mess with the sound. And Rodrigo really pushes for experimentation. Don't just plonk them down.
Right.
Move them slightly. Try different angles. Maybe tilt them a tiny bit. You're hunting for that sweet spot where everything clicks. where the soundstage is clear and focused.
Okay, makes sense. Fiddle until it sounds right. Now, what about that bass problem? You hear that all the time with small rooms.
Ah, yes, the infamous low-end exaggeration.
Yeah, the room makes the bass sound huge, so you turn it down in your mix, and then it sounds thin everywhere else.
Exactly. It leads to inaccurate mixes.
Yep.
Rodrigo suggests a couple of ways to tackle this. One is using a high-pass filter.
Yeah.
In your DW or maybe even on the monitors themselves if they have controls.
So just cutting off the super low frequencies that the room is boosting?
Pretty much, yeah. Removing that muddy, boomy sound that small rooms often create below a certain point. The other solution is physical, adding bass traps.
Bass traps, where do those go?
Usually in the corners of the room. Corners are where bass frequencies tend to build up the most. So traps there can really help absorb and tame that boominess.
Okay, so room treatment, placement, bass management.
Yeah, and all these things together, they really reinforce a key point from the article. A small room that's been treated well. It can often sound better than a big room that hasn't been treated at all.
That's huge. So it's not just about buying fancy speaker.
Nope. It's making sure your room lets those speakers do their job properly. Helping, not hindering.
Okay, that's a fantastic foundation. So we've set the stage, tamed the room. Now let's talk about the stars. The monitors themselves. Rodrigo says size really matters in small spaces, right? Not just preference, but critical.
Absolutely. For compact studios, Rodrigo generally points towards monitors with woofers around 5 to 6 inches.
5 or 6 inches? Why that size?
Well, several reasons. They physically take up less space, which is obvious, but they're also easier to position correctly, like getting that equilateral triangle and keeping them away from walls without causing new acoustic issues. And crucially, they're less likely to just overwhelm a small room with sheer volume or bass energy.
Okay. Any examples he gives?
Yeah, he highlights a real classic, the Yamaha HS5.
Ah, the white cones. Seen those everywhere.
Exactly. It's got a 5-inch woofer, known for really clear highs and a balanced low end that doesn't overpower things. It's sort of a benchmark for small rooms for a reason.
Okay, so smaller size. But what about power? I always thought more watts, better sound. Is that wrong for small studios?
That's a super common misconception. More power isn't automatically better, especially not in a tight space. Because while bigger monitors need more power to fill bigger rooms accurately, putting that same level of power into a small room can easily lead to distortion. Or just Fletcher-Munson curve issues, where the perceived balance changes drastically with volume. It just creates an inaccurate listening environment.
So it defeats the purpose of having accurate monitors in the first place.
Precisely. The goal is accuracy, not just loudness. And Rodrigo mentions another popular model here, the KRK Rocket 5G4.
The yellow cones, another classic.
Yep. It also has a 5-inch woofer, but it packs around 55 watts of power. Rodrigo points out that this strikes a really nice balance.
How so?
It's got enough juice to give you a solid, defined bass response, which you absolutely need for mixing modern music, but it's still manageable. It's not going to shake the plaster off your walls or trick your ears in a small room. It's about efficient, precise power, not just raw wattage.
Okay, so finding that balance is key. How do you figure out what's right for your specific little room?
Well, Rodrigo gives some practical advice. Rule of thumb. If your studio space is, say, under 100 square feet,
which is pretty common for home setups.
Totally. Then you should definitely lean towards those monitors with the smaller 5 or 6 inch woofers. They'll generally have enough power to fill that space clearly without causing ear fatigue or major acoustic problems.
And placement again.
Always placement. Get them at ear level. And remember that foot away from the walls minimum. It seems small, but Rodrigo emphasizes how much clarity you gain just from that little bit of breathing room. Works, regardless of the monitor size.
It really sounds like getting that size and power balance right has a massive impact. It's not just saving desk space, it's actively improving your sound quality because you're in a compact environment. Precision is the name of the game.
Nailed it.
Okay, but what if your studio isn't always stationary? What if your sonic sanctuary needs to move sometimes?
Good point.
Yeah?
That brings us to portability and versatility. Often overlooked, but super important for small setups.
Yeah, Rodrigo talks about this too, right? Why does portability matter so much here?
Well, think about it. Maybe you need to take your setup from your bedroom to jam with a friend. Or maybe you just rearrange your room often.
Or move apartments.
Exactly. Having monitors that are lightweight and easy to carry just makes life so much easier. Rodrigo flags the IK multimedia iLoud micro monitors as a prime example here.
The iLoud Micros, those things are tiny.
Seriously tiny. They weigh less than 3.5 pounds each. But the sound quality they put out for that size is pretty impressive. Super compact, super portable.
Okay, that's portability. What about versatility? Monitors that can adapt.
Yeah, this is about monitors that sound good, not just in your treated space, but can adapt if you take them somewhere else, or if your room isn't perfect.
How do monitors adapt?
Good question. This is where features like built-in EQ settings come in handy. And Rodrigo mentions the KRK Rocket 5G4 again for this.
Ah, the Rockets are versatile too.
Yep. They have adjustable EQ on the back. You can boost or cut highs or lows. So you can essentially tweak the monitor's sound to better match the room you're in.
So you can compensate a bit if the room is making the bass too boomy, for instance.
Exactly. Or if it sounds too dull, you can maybe lift the highs a bit. It gives you a fighting chance to get a balanced sound, even if the room acoustics aren't ideal. That adaptability is really valuable.
Okay, so if portability and versatility are big priorities for someone, what practical things should they look for when shopping?
Rodrigo lays out a few tips. First, obviously, check the weight and dimensions. Go compact and light if you plan to move them often.
Makes sense.
Second, look for those adjustable features, built-in EQ controls, maybe different input options, versatility boosters.
Right.
And third, if you are going to travel with them frequently, think about durability. A solid build quality, a sturdy enclosure that protects your investment.
Good point. Don't want them falling apart after a few trips.
Definitely not. Yeah, Rodrigo concludes that portable and versatile monitors aren't just convenient. They can really boost your productivity in small spaces. Choosing smart here sets you up for success wherever you make music.
Okay, now, the part everyone kind of dreads but has to face. The budget.
Size slightly, yep. The money talk.
It can feel like a huge barrier, right? Getting good sound without spending a fortune. How does Rodrigo suggest we approach the budget question?
Well, he makes it clear budget is obviously a massive factor.
Yeah.
And knowing how to spend wisely is key. First step, set a realistic budget.
Okay. How realistic?
Think about where you are. Are you totally new, buying everything, or upgrading? If you're just starting out, Rodrigo suggests aiming for around, say, $300 to $500 for a decent pair of monitors.
$300 to $500 for a pair?
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of quality does that get you?
You can get really solid entry-level options in that range. He again mentions brands like KRK and Yamaha, the Rocket 5G4 or the Yamaha HS5 we talked about.
Yeah.
They often fall into this price bracket.
And they offer good clarity for beginners.
Absolutely. They're popular starter choices for a reason. Great value, clear sound.
Okay, that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But what if someone's ready to invest a bit more, like take the next step up?
Right. If you can stretch the budget maybe into the $600 to $1,200 range, you start getting into seriously high-quality monitor territory.
Okay, double the price. What's the difference?
You get superior sound, definitely. More detail, better translation. Plus, monitors in this range often have more advanced features. Rodrigo mentions models like the Genelec 8010A or the Focal Alpha 65 Evo as examples.
Genelec and Focal. Yeah, those are respected names.
Exactly. And they might have things like more sophisticated room tuning controls built in. So you're not just buying speakers. Rodrigo frames it as investing in a professional tool, something designed to help you get the absolute best sound, especially by adapting better to your specific room. It's thinking long-term value.
That makes sense. Invest now, reap the rewards later.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget to shop smart. Rodrigo reminds us to check places like Sweetwater, Guitar Center, the big retailers.
Look for sales.
Yeah, sales, B stock, maybe even refurbished items. You can sometimes find great deals. He throws out the JBL 305P MKII as another fantastic option, known for accurate sound in small spaces that you can often find discounted.
Good tip. Keep an eye out for deals.
So, wrapping up budget, Rodrigo stresses it should match your current needs, but also think about your future goals. Set a realistic target, understand the value of investing a bit more if you can, and hunt for those deals. You can find great monitors for your small space without totally breaking the bank.
Okay, this next part is super important, I think. User reviews and recommendations.
Yeah, hearing from people who actually use the gear.
Exactly. When you're looking for monitors, especially for tricky small spaces, you really can't ignore what other users are saying. They often catch things, pros and cons, that maybe a formal review misses. You get that real-world picture.
It's so true. It goes beyond just the technical specs. Think about the KRK Rocket 5G4 again.
Okay.
Rodrigo points out lots of users love that powerful bass response, right? Especially if you make electronic music or hip-hop.
Yeah, KRKs are known for bass.
But that same feedback often comes with a warning. Users will say that powerful bass can actually be too much, kind of overwhelming, in a really small, untreated room, even using the EQ controls.
Ah, so it's a double-edged sword in a small space.
Exactly. And that kind of nuance, that real-world feedback, is gold. It helps you understand how a monitor might actually perform in your specific situation, not just on paper or in a perfect demo room. It helps you manage expectations, make informed trade-offs.
Okay, so where do we find these golden nuggets? Rodrigo suggests the usual suspects.
Yeah, retailer sites like Sweetwater and Guitar Center usually have user ratings and detailed comment sections, really valuable. And then there are the forums.
Like Gear Sluts. Oh boy, you can go down a rabbit hole there.
Chuckles. You really can.
Yeah.
But you can also find incredibly detailed discussions and long-term user experiences. If you're sifting through all this, what should you look for?
Good question. How do you filter the noise?
Rodrigo advises looking for common themes. If like 5 different people mention the highs or fatiguing after an hour in a small room,
Yeah.
pay attention.
Right. Multiple people saying the same thing is usually significant.
Definitely. Also, try to find reviews from people making similar music to you. Someone mixing orchestral scores might have different needs than someone producing techno.
Good point. Context matters.
And stepping back from just online stuff, Rodrigo also suggests talking to people you trust. Industry pros, if you know any, or just experienced friends in your music community.
Get recommendations from real people.
Yeah, their vetted experiences can sometimes be even more reliable than anonymous online posts. So, bottom line from Rodrigo, user reviews, forum discussions, personal recommendations, they're all essential tools. Use them wisely to make a confident choice that really fits your needs and helps your music.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We really have.
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap our deep dive, choosing the right studio monitors for your small space, it's absolutely crucial. It impacts your sound quality, your mix translation, your whole workflow.
Yeah, we hit on acoustics first, taming the room, understanding shapes, reflections.
Then monitor size and power, finding that sweet spot, maybe 5 or 6 inches, enough power, but not too much, like those Yamaha HS5s or KRK Rocket 5s.
Right. And portability and versatility if you need to move around, maybe looking at something like the iLoud Micros or monitors with EQ controls.
Budget, of course.
Yeah.
Setting a realistic goal, knowing where the value is, maybe hunting for deals on things like the JBLs.
And finally, digging into those user reviews and recommendations to get the real story.
Exactly. And underlying all of it is placement, placement, placement. That equilateral triangle, keeping them away from walls, maybe using isolation pads. It all helps maximize whatever monitors you choose.
The big takeaway seems to be that your small room doesn't have to hold you back. It can be a legit professional grade space with the right gear and, just as importantly, the right setup.
Absolutely. It's not about just buying the most expensive monitors you can find. It's about making smart choices that work with your space, designing your own little creative fortress, piece by piece.
So thinking about all this, maybe the final thought for you listening isn't just, what speakers should I buy?
Yeah.
Maybe challenge yourself to think bigger. How does your choice of monitors affect your creative flow? It's not just about hearing accurately. It's about creating an environment where you feel inspired, where you can work comfortably for hours, where your ideas can really take shape.
That's a great way to put it. It's part of your creative ecosystem.
Exactly. So go out there. Explore the options we talked about. If you can, listen to different models, head to a local store, maybe borrow from a friend. Really think about your specific needs, your music, your room.
Do your homework. Trust your ears.
Yeah. Find those monitors that aren't just technically good, but that feel right for you. The ones that will help you unlock that next level and, really create your best work. Unleash that creativity like never before.